We really would love to know what your plan is to help lower the cost of living.
Yeah, first of all, thank you both for being here. And yours is a story I hear around the country as I travel. And in terms of both rightly having the right to have aspirations and dreams and ambitions for your family, and working hard and finding that the American dream is, for this generation and so many recently, far more elusive than it's been. And we need to deal with that. And there are a number of ways. One is bringing down the cost of everyday necessities, including groceries.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
The Trainwreck tour continues, and not even Oprah could save her. Gang, I hate to do this to you, but we're going to see, I promise, just a couple of highlights from what many are calling Kamala's most disastrous interview yet. We're going to contrast it with Trump's epic appearance on the Greg Gutfeld show, which broke ratings records. And we're going to see how Vivek in Springfield, Ohio, is part of a political realignment that may doom the Democrats for generations. You are not going to want to miss this. Greetings, everyone. It is Live Stream Friday. I am your host, Dr. Steve, your patron professor, here to help you stay sane in these insane times. So you know what to do. Make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. Make sure to share this video far and wide as well. We're live on YouTube, Rumble, Twitter, you name it. If you're on Rumble, go on over to YouTube and subscribe there. If you're on YouTube, head on over to the channel on Rumble and subscribe there. We need these videos to get into the hands of as many people as possible over the next 50 days to see the biggest blowout election imaginable. Speaking of, we're doing it, gang. We're doing it. My brand new book, Fight: How Trump and the MAGA Movement Are Changing the World, has just hit number 4 on Amazon, and we're climbing the charts. It's my brand new book. It just came out on Tuesday, and it's how we, the MAGA movement, are changing much more than America, gang. We are changing the world. And in 150 pages, I show you exactly how you are changing the world. You are changing the world. And this book was written for you. So before you do anything else, make sure to click on that link in the description below or scan the QR code. That's what I love. I love scanning that QR code on the screen and order your copy right now. Get one for yourself. Get one for the patriots in your life. Let's together make this book that's all about us, you and me, and of course, number 47 himself, soon to be number 1 on Amazon. It's going to be absolutely epic. And of course, just a quick reminder, if you want to ask me your questions, because YouTube has suspended our super chats, they have completely demonetized us. Just click on that link below or go to fight.turleytalks.com. That's fight.turleytalks.com. Join any level of support that you like. You'll have instant access to our very own virtual platform where you can ask me all your questions, and I'll be happy to answer them right here on this live stream. So just click on that link below or go to fight.turleytalks.com. Sign up for any level of support that you like, and I will be happy to answer your questions on this live stream. I have a proposal. After sitting through and listening to Kamala Harris so that you don't have to, I believe that we should rename the Democrat Party. Clearly, this is no longer a party that believes in democracy, so they can't be called the Democrats. I mean, obviously they don't believe in double. Their nominee never received, ever in her entire political career, she never got a single primary vote. She is and she always will be an appointee. She was appointed this nominee by an unelected establishment. She was selected, not elected. Clearly, they have no interest in democracy. So I think we should rename the Democrat Party the Nirvana Party. Now, hear me out on this. Those of you who have a little Buddhist knowledge background here. This is a political party that now officially believes in nothing. This is a party that revels in nothing. And it's a party that literally stands for nothing. Example number one, this is their party's leader. And after listening to this, please tell me what this party believes and stands for.
We love our country. I love our country. I know we all do. That's why everybody's here right now. We love our country. We take pride in the privilege of being American. And this is a moment where we can and must come together as Americans, understanding we have so much more in common than what separates us. Let's come together with the character that we are so proud of about who we are, which is we are an optimistic people. We are an optimistic people. Americans, by character, are people who have dreams and ambitions and aspirations. We believe in what is possible. We believe in what can be. And we believe in fighting for that. That's how we came into being. Because the people before us understood that one of the greatest expressions for the love of our country, one of the greatest expressions of patriotism, is to fight for the ideals of who we are.
I don't even know what to say. Well, I mean, I'm sorry, I'm trying to keep a straight face here. I'm honestly trying to keep a straight face through all that because I still think of that Billy Madison game show host. Not one word even came close to a rational thought. I'm beginning to notice something here. And it's rather ironic because Cackles, she loves the verb to be. Have you noticed that? For some reason, she loves saying things like, what can be? Unburdened by the things that were. Becoming what we are and what we will be. And we believe in fighting for that. Fighting for what? You may ask. Obviously, it's anyone's guess. But it does appear that we now have a Democrat Party that revels in nothingness. That audience, that star-studded audience, supposedly, obviously that's an indictment about the state of our celebrities. That audience, Oprah, they all appeared at least somewhat captivated, maybe a little disillusioned by literally nothing. Example number 2.
When you become president, what would be your specific steps? Yeah, of course. What would be your specific steps to strengthening the border?
So it's a wonderful and important question. You know, my background was as a prosecutor, and I was also the elected attorney general for 2 terms of a border state. So this is not a theoretical issue for me. This is something I've actually worked on. Okay. I have prosecuted transnational criminal organizations for the trafficking of guns, drugs, and human beings. I take very seriously the importance of having a secure border and ensuring the safety of the American people.
I just want to stop there for a minute. I want to bring your attention to something. We're nearly a minute into that answer, her so-called answer. And can you recall what that question was that she was supposedly answering? It was a very simple, straightforward question. What will be your specific steps to securing the border when you become, God forbid, president? Sorry, I ad-libbed that last part in there. We're now nearly a minute in to that answer, and she hasn't even remotely come close to providing a single specific step she would take to securing the border. Keep going.
Sadly, where we are now can be traced most recently back to the fact that when the United States Congress, members of the Congress, including some of the most conservative Republicans, came up with a border security bill. And here's what that border security bill would have done. It would have put 1,500 more border agents at the border.
Stop.
Let me tell you, those border agents are working around.
You have to stop. I'm sorry. Seriously. Think about it now. We're now, what, a minute and a half, almost 2 minutes into it? She's talking, think about it. She's talking about the mess at the border. She's talking about, that's what the question presupposed. We know that. We know the border's a mess. He wants to know specifically how she, not a Bill, not Biden, not Trump, what she is going to do specifically to secure the border. And instead of answering him, she starts rambling about the border. And to make it even worse, she starts casting blame for the mess at the border. She's blaming, I can't even believe it. She's desperately trying to blame Trump and the Republicans for the mess at the border that everyone in the nation knows she's responsible for. Everyone knows it. The only difference is that the Democrats, the party of nothing, they don't care. They don't care. They have no problem with an open border. They don't care because, again, they're a party of nothing. And all the polls show that what she's doing there is a complete and total exercise in futility. Everyone knows. We're talking like by 2 to 1. Everybody knows that Kamala is responsible for the mess at the southern border. Everyone. It's just 45% of the country doesn't care. It comes down, when all's said and done, it just comes down to who cares about it and who doesn't. And the latter would be Democrats. They believe in and care about literally nothing. Keep going.
Understand, even in the intervening months, what that bill would have done to give support to folks who care about this issue. And this again gets to the point about what does leadership really look like? And is it about you or is it about the people? Right. Is it about running on problems or fixing problems? My work and my career has always been about saying, let's fix problems. Let's address the needs because we know it's within our capacity to do that.
So to answer Justin's question, now that that bill has gone and hasn't passed, will you reintroduce that?
Absolutely. And when I am elected president of the United States, I will make sure that bill gets to my desk.
Oprah had to jump into her rescue. Did you see that? Her non-answer was so obvious. It was so meandering. It was so nonsensical. It was so nothing. Oprah had to come to the rescue and basically said, so to answer his question, so if I'm getting this right, if we were to actually answer the question, would you just sign that bill? Oh yeah, that's what I'd make sure that bill got to my desk. Yeah, right. Oh, a bill, by the way, that would give mass amnesty to millions upon millions of illegals. It gives Homeland Security Secretary that authority. But again, so in the end, you would sign that bill. You would sign a bill. You don't need a bill. This is about enforcing the laws that are already on the freaking books. You don't need a bill. Everybody in the, yeah, yeah, I mean, I'm literally dumbfounded. Like we heard at the beginning, we are literally all the dumber for having listened to that. Now, obviously, this live stream event with Oprah, like the ABC ambush, was designed, it was choreographed to be a cakewalk for Kamala. Everything was put in place to make Kamala look stellar and in command and in control. And it ended up being, frankly, a train wreck. It was, in the words of one commentator I was reading, it was a word salad extravaganza and a painful one at that. She gave answers that were incoherent. They were rambling. They were trite. It was rhetorically absurd. In a word, she remained burdened. Kamala appeared burdened in that. And freaking Oprah. I mean, talk about a downfall. I mean, wow. But even freaking Oprah, you could see her exhibiting body language that hardly displayed confidence in this person. Again, someone said, one of the shocked commentators on this interview said it looked like Oprah didn't know it. You could see Oprah's face several times in the interview, not knowing what Harris was even trying to say. She didn't know what Harris was talking about half the time. Now, ironically, this wasn't the first interview disaster of the week for Cackles. It's the Trainwreck tour. And she sat down for a live interview with the National Association of Black Journalists. And needless to say, it was just another bumbling and stumbling cliche disaster. And as you saw her basically running off the stage when it was done, take a look. Take a look at the faces of the interviewers. They're kind of looking at each other going like, what the heck did we just witness there? I mean, seriously, look at them. They're like, what the hell did we just sit through? Townhall.com had a whole article on just how very noticeable the expressions of incredulity were on the part of those interviewers. I mean, they clearly recognize this lady is not ready for prime time. Now, what is so redeeming about all this is it actually brings to the fore, it throws into relief, as you would say, across the pond, how starkly Cackles compares to number 45, soon to be number 47 himself. Trump gave an epic interview the other night that shattered the ratings on Fox of all places. And the contrast between these two could not possibly have been more stark. But first, gang, if you are just joining us, remember, if you want to ask me your questions, because YouTube has unfortunately suspended our super chats, just click on that link below, join any one of our levels of support, and you have instant access to our own virtual platform where you can ask me all of your questions. I'll be happy to answer them right here on this live stream. Just click on that link below or go to fight.turleytalks.com/join. Also, I want everyone to know that if you're finding yourself in the painful position of owing back taxes, ouch, we've got some awesome patriots here that are ready to help you. As I'm sure you know, the IRS is currently on its way to making everyone pay up. They've hired thousands of new agents and sent over, I believe, 5 million pay up letters in 2024 alone. But if you're dealing with this mess, I want to connect you with a real tangible solution. Don't give up your rights or deal with them alone. The IRS are not your friends. You know that. Let Tax Network USA, a trusted tax relief firm, save you the time and money you deserve to keep. They're saved Americans, get this, over $1 billion in back taxes, and they have the skills needed to secure you the best possible deal. From a few $1,000s to over 10 million, business to personal taxes, let Tax Network USA restore your good standing so you could strengthen your financial situation. When your situation is secure, you become the pillar of strength our nation needs. So click on that link below or go to 1-800-245-6000 for a private free consultation, or visit them at tnusa.com/Turley. Now, I'm sure many of you know that Trump was on Greg Gutfeld's show the other night, and it really was nothing short of epic. It was a grand slam. I mean, it was a ratings extravaganza. It was an absolute ratings blowout. Gutfeld saw his biggest ratings ever by far. It actually blew away every single show on television during that time slot. Every single one, cable or network. Talk about a poll, right? That's your real poll right there. And just look at the contrast between Trump and Cackles. Here's Trump talking about showing Gutfeld his shot wound.
That's unusual.
Remember when you showed it to me?
I showed it.
Yeah, you showed it to me. You said, I know people aren't going to believe this, so Gutfeld, take a look at my ear.
That's right. You know, we met at the convention.
Yeah.
And I said, who am I going to show it to? You know, we have a lot of guys. You know, they'll say it didn't exist. And I actually did have such confidence in him, and he's really a very special guy, talented guy, good guy, great guy. And I said, you know, if I'm going to show it, let's do it with Gutfeld.
Yes.
That's amazing. It's amazing.
Because it happened right after.
Yeah, how did you get him to see the top of your ear?
Well, I sat in a low chair.
Okay, thank you.
But you know what? It was true. And I took the bandages off very carefully.
Yeah.
And I showed him. He said, "That's nasty."
Yes.
That was nasty. But
I kind of wanted to touch it, but I knew I would have been tackled. And I would have enjoyed it.
No, I love Greg Gutfeld. He's just so hilarious. Now, I show you that because I think that's just a perfect example of the fundamental difference between Trump and Harris. And you could see it anyone could see it. Anyone with any shred of honesty could see it. Trump owned that stage. Trump owned that stage. Whereas Cackles Kamala, she was owned. Trump commanded that stage. Kamala is commanded. Nobody needed to come to Trump's rescue on that show. He didn't need anybody debating on his behalf. Kamala was in constant need of rescuing all throughout that silly, pathetic live stream. Said differently, one is a leader. The other is very clearly and sadly led. And while Trump was absolutely crushing it on Gutfeld, actually answering the audience's questions, one of his major campaign operatives, Vivek Ramaswamy, was taking questions as well. And you want to guess where? Where was Vivek the other day? I know some of you, I know probably most of you know. Where was Vivek the other day? I believe he's still there. He was in none other than Springfield, Ohio. Want to take a guess at who won the debate in the eyes of the vast majority of the nation? How ironic is that? They are doubling down on what the legacy media is doing, everything they possibly can to try to shame the Trump campaign of. But no, that's right. Vivek was in Springfield speaking directly, not by way of public officials like the borderline illiterates at ABC do. No, he's there on the ground speaking directly with the people who are actually living there. Listen to this exchange. Again, if this doesn't faithfully and concisely summarize this campaign, nothing does. Check this out.
Question. My name is Chrissy. You came here from your hometown. We have city officials that live right here in Springfield and have not set up a meeting like this for Springfield. You said your tickets were free, right?
Yes, they are. We're not making money tonight.
Okay, listen to me. But why can't the city officials, I'm serious, why can't the city officials do this? Go to the north, south, east, and west of Springfield, maybe get people that want to come, and find out what they're really living circumstances. And here's why. We're paying for those, right? I've been in Springfield for 66 years. I know a lot about Springfield, okay? So my take is, if you don't talk to people, even Haitians, I have Haitian friends too. I know all of them are over here illegal too. But what I'm saying is, this is a community. If you want to be open about things, talk to the people. Don't just make it seem like President Trump did, like everyone's lying. They don't really know, if they're not living on that side of town, what really goes on. So how will you know about a city if you're not bringing the people together, right, and talking to them? It's called Communication 101.
What's your name?
My name is Chrissy.
Chrissy, I appreciate you being here. So, I'll tell you what I think is actually going on, okay? The first thing I'm going to say may not be very popular in this room, but I'll tell you the truth, okay? This is what I truly believe, so I'm going to share it anyway. Actually, before I came here, I was in City Hall. I met with a number of the city officials. I invited them to be here tonight, actually. I thought it would be productive, because I don't have the power other than through philanthropy or through public advocacy to change something here. And we'll try to use the power of, my platform voice to cause positive change here. But I invited them to be here because they're in a position to run the city. And I'll tell you what I believe. I know many of you may feel like your leadership doesn't care. I met with them. I don't think that's true. I think I sat there for an hour with them after we met with the Haitian group. I think they actually really do care, at least the subset I met with. And I know that's not a popular view maybe in this room. But I will tell you what I do see happening in the country. I think there's a culture of fear, actually. I think the reason they're not here tonight is not because they don't care about this. It's because they're scared, actually. And I think that culture of fear has spread like an epidemic across our country, where actually what you really need is just transparency. You report to the people. If you work in a company, how many of anybody in here work in a company, okay? Your CEO is the boss of your company. But people mix this up. When you're in government and you're a city official, or you're a mayor or whatever, your boss is actually the people who are in this room today. And it's not just the people in the city who mess that up, that's the federal government as well. And so what I hope to do today is to show that actually talking to the people of Springfield isn't that scary. The way the town council meeting, somebody came up, will be demonized for speaking about their own experience. We're live streaming this for the world to see that actually these are just good, patriotic Americans who love their country and love their city, who are struggling because the people who they elected to run their federal government all the way down have let them down. And you don't have to be scared of actually being face-to-face with your fellow citizens. So I did my best. I can't control what they do, but I did do my best to highlight this today.
Now, that's the definition of a brilliant answer. Vivek answered her specifically as to why their public officials are hiding from them in Springfield. And it wasn't a popular answer. He wasn't pandering to them. They all said, when she said, why aren't we having things like this? Why aren't they doing it for it? And you heard the audience go, because they don't care. They don't care about us, right? That's that vertical divide that we talk about all the time. The new realignment is not a horizontal political divide, left versus right. It's more and more a vertical divide, people versus an aloof political class that rule for their own gain at the expense of the values, interests, concerns of the people. Vivek answered somewhat unpopularly. He thinks they do care. He's met with the Springfield officials. He thinks they do care. He thinks they really are concerned about 20,000 immigrants being dumped by Kamala Harris in a city of 60,000. And the social pathologies that inevitably result from a culture shock as devastating as that. He thinks they do care. But they are scared. They're scared. And they're scared because we have an epidemic of cowardice and fear in our nation. And that cowardice and fear has not only been imposed by the woke ideological lunatics that run our government, but ironically, even those woke ideological lunatics are themselves purveyors of this fear. In fact, I could think of no better word to describe Cackle's Kamala than sheer cowardice. Both her and Tim Walz are the epitome of cowardice. Now, that was a brilliant answer because it answered the question directly in such a way that was specific to their situation, to what was happening in Springfield. But then what, as Vivek always does, he couched that specificity in a wider context of a national epidemic of fear. And it's so fascinating because back in 1979, in his Harvard address, the great Russian literary Nobel laureate, Alexander Solzhenitsyn, he spent an hour basically critiquing Western society, what had happened with Western liberal society. And he brutally critiqued the permutations that had taken place since particularly the 1960s. And the first fault he had with our modern secular liberal society was that we had lost the classical virtue of courage. We no longer had the capacity to stand up for what is good, true, and beautiful. Because in the classical virtues, there's 4 virtues: wisdom, moderation, justice, and courage. And it's going all the way back to classical Athens and the like. And of those 4 virtues, the number one virtue that was most important was courage, because without courage, you didn't have the fortitude to fight for the other 3. You didn't have the fortitude to pursue the other 3. And what Solzhenitsyn noticed is that in our rotting society, it's rotting precisely because good people were not standing up to evil anymore. And they weren't standing up to evil, he believed, because we were too afraid. And he clearly understood, being a Soviet dissident, being exiled from the Soviet Union, he clearly understood that a population that loses courage is ultimately a population that can be manipulated and controlled. Because the single greatest bulwark against control and manipulation is courage. And so what's so awesome in all of this is that while the Democrats are actually embracing cowardice, they're embracing nothingness. What's so awesome is as they're coddling their candidates, giving them fabricated debates, fabricated polls, fabricated interviews, as all of that's happening, what's Trump getting? What's the whole MAGA movement getting? Lawfare, arrest, indictments, a media apparatus aligned against him, 2 assassination attempts. Literally everything imaginable being thrown at him. And yet, what's he doing? Right? Trump is still standing with fists raised up, calling all of us to join with him in the fight. Fight. But he is the very emblem of courage. Cackles is cowardice. Trump is courage. And speaking of, gang, if you haven't seen it, if you're just joining, check out the cover of my brand new book, Fight: How Trump and the MAGA Movement Are Changing the World. Look at that cover. I love it. Okay, this is a book about what we are fighting for. We're fighting for nothing less than to change our nation and to change the world for faith, family, and freedom. And it's happening. It's happening in 150 pages. I show you exactly how you, along with, this guy named Trump, but all of us together are changing the world. It's Trump and the MAGA movement itself. So before you do anything, gang, make sure to click on that link below or scan the QR code. That's what I like to do. I love that QR code. Scan the QR code on the screen and order your copy right now. Don't just order one, order a bunch. Make it Christmas early. Get a bunch of copies for all the patriots in your life. Let's together make this book that's about us, about you and me, and of course, soon to be number 47 himself, #1 on Amazon. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be epic. All right. Now, we talked about this yesterday, but this was so huge in terms of the political realignment that's happening in our nation today. And I think it really does piggyback on what happened there in Springfield the other day with the working class realigning around Trump and the MAGA movement. Indeed, they're fast becoming the very base, the very heart of the MAGA movement. Most of you know by now that the Teamsters Union, which is the single largest labor union in the nation, 1.2 million members, historically a guaranteed faithful arm of the Democrat Party. Every single Democrat presidential candidate over the last 30 plus years has been publicly and enthusiastically endorsed by them. They announced the other day that they were refusing to endorse Kamala. Now, of course, rather than report on what a bombshell announcement that was, what an unprecedented bombshell, think about it. And one of the major wings of the Democrat machine is refusing to endorse the Democrat nominee that, of course, nobody voted for in any single primary. You would think that was newsworthy, would you not? I mean, can you imagine how the media would have covered it had the NRA refused to endorse Trump? Can you imagine how the media would have covered it if 60% of NRA membership were voting for Kamala? But instead, the lying legacy media, the shamelessly lying legacy media, desperately tried to spin this by saying that the Teamsters refused to endorse either presidential candidate. Oh, looky here. Oh, the Teamsters aren't endorsing anyone this election cycle, Harriet. Oh, look. Oh, well, let's move on. In other news. I'm sorry. Did you just say that the Teamsters, the largest labor union on the planet, just refused to do what they've been doing every single presidential election cycle for the last 30 years, which is endorse the Democrat? And then you're spinning that as, oh, they didn't endorse either candidate. Let's move on. I want to move on now. I mean, that's equivalent to like saying that the ultra woke teachers union decided they're not going to endorse any candidate. There's only one candidate that these institutionalized unions endorse. They're part of the establishment power structure. So they always fulfill that role of being part of the establishment structure, they always, like the media, they always endorse the Democrat. That's what you do when you're part of the establishment. But we don't have to look very far to see why the legacy media is reporting the story the way they are, because not only did the Teamsters refuse to endorse Kamala, but they at the same time released their poll, their own internal poll of their 1.2 million members that showed Trump absolutely crushing Kamala 2-1. Labor union members, historically one of the most loyal Democrat constituencies, are supporting Trump by nearly 30 freaking points, 59 to 33. And as it turns out, it's not just the Teamsters. Here's what Bob Bartles, president of the largest steam fitters union in the nation, had to say about his membership and President Trump.
Tell you on my end, the steam fitters have voted in the poll. We have a 70% return in favor of President Trump.
Why?
Well, everything that's gone on the last 4 years, an open border, inflation, gas prices, oil, mortgage rates. I mean, I can go on and on. The immigrants just getting into neighborhoods like the neighborhood I grew up in, which I mentioned last night. I have a daughter down there. She's afraid to walk around. And this is a neighborhood I grew up in. These are where people worked hard all their life to buy a house in a nice neighborhood, and now it's destroyed by illegal immigrants. And like I said last night, too, to David Muir and Lindsey Davis, those two hacks from the moderators from the debate, they don't have to go to Springfield, Ohio to look at mutilated animals. They could go to right in Queens in a federal park, and you'll see them all over the beach. It's disgusting. It's bringing the property value down. It's just ridiculous.
That was freaking brilliant. That was so well said. Rhetorically, that was, I mean, he speaks better than a presidential nominee right now who believes in nothing. People spend years saving up to buy a home in a nice neighborhood, and then that neighborhood gets absolutely wrecked overnight precisely and solely because of Kamala's open border policies, because of her blatant dereliction of her law enforcement responsibilities. 70%, according to his poll, 70% of union members are going Trump. Now, again, we talked about this the other day, but I love Mike Cernovich's observation. I want to show it to you again because I think he's spot on. The Teamsters' tacit endorsement, make no mistake, that's what it was when they released that poll. It was a tacit endorsement of Trump. It proves that Trump won that debate last week. Cernovich noted that Kamala destroyed herself among these voters, where they're supporting fracking bans and gun bans. And he walked away. Trump walked away from the debate as the champion of the working class, the champion of the people of Springfield. And the working class voter is the one who will decide this election, particularly in the 3 swing states of Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. So if Trump walked away as the champion of the working class voter, and the working class voter is the one that's going to decide this election ultimately, Trump walked away the winner of the debate, hands down. And this endorsement, this tacit endorsement from these from a major endorsement from one and a tacit from the other proves it. And he went on to point out, quote, "I don't even know how to process the data anymore. We've never had such massive new support for a candidate. Nobody can tell you what's happening, not even me. It's so big." And we could see that enormity in real time with that Teamsters poll. I mean, if we compare that poll to the one that was taken in July, when Biden was still the Democrat nominee or presumed nominee, union workers were actually supporting Biden at the time by 8 points in July. I mean, let that hit you. Biden was beating Trump among labor union workers by 8 points. That support is now plus 27 for Trump. It's a 35-point swing to Trump. Labor Union is not supporting Cackle's Kamala. And I would argue that that swing represents an equally stunning political realignment happening in the nation right before our very eyes that I think the legacy media is purposely trying to cover up, to be honest with you. I mean, we'll be vindicated on November 5th by God's grace. Keep it all in prayer and do everything we need to do because they'll try to pull all the shenanigans they can. But we are seeing a political realignment that promises to sink not just Kamala, but any potential Democrat presidential candidate for the foreseeable future. And when all is said and done, that's because of the inextricable link between the working class vote, the so-called the working class vote with the so-called blue wall states, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. The political realignment that we're seeing in towns like Springfield, Ohio, the political realignment we're seeing in Iowa that used to be reliably blue, that is now solidly red. Those realignments are clearly translating and extending in Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. You'll definitely want to check out the interview that I did. Just had it with Cliff Maloney. Some of you may know him if you guys are on Twitter. If you've been watching Charlie Kirk's program, Charlie's been talking with Cliff a lot. He's in charge of a lot of the early mail-in voting in Pennsylvania, and he's absolutely crushing it. And he has real-time data, real-time numbers that are coming in for the amount of Republicans that are voting by mail this time around as compared to the Democrats and as both as compared to 2020. It's so exciting. You want to make sure you see that video. I'll tease you with that. I think we're going to have it up. We're going to upload it. I don't know. Josh, Mikey, you guys might know. I think we're going to upload it later on today or sometime over the weekend. But there clearly does appear to be a massive swing over to Trump among working class voters, particularly in those three so-called blue wall states of Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, that may in fact be the death knell for the Democrats moving forward. We're not just talking about November. If Democrats cannot win Pennsylvania, Michigan, or Wisconsin, one of those three, they're dead. They can't, because of the Electoral College, they can't win the White House. It's so interesting because with Biden, at least they were doing okay. Not great, but they were doing okay. Biden had established his, again, for right or for wrong, it's irrelevant. I'm just being descriptive here, not prescriptive. But Biden had established his bona fides with the working class vote, and they tended to be in his corner. I see it all the time here in Delaware. They tend to be in his corner. Now with California Kamala, right? Because at least Joe was old Scranton Joe, but with California Kamala, she has proved to be an absolute disaster for the working class vote. And if she is a disaster for the working class vote, and if they are determinative for the three states she needs to win the White House, then I can assure you, even a star-studded train wreck with Oprah ain't gonna save her. Over to you guys. Over to you as Josh and Micah set up your questions. Do you get stressed because of your monthly income? It just doesn't seem to cover the bills, as it were. Well, you need to know you're not alone. Most Americans feel the exact same way you feel. You heard them over in Springfield. Everything is just ridiculously expensive. We're all reaching more and more for our credit cards and cover the basics like childcare and insurance and power and food. I mean, it's tough. There's just no way around it. It's tough. And if you're feeling the stress and anxiety, you need to call my friends over at American Financing. Gang, they are helping hard-working Americans just like you tap into their home's equity to pay off their high-interest debt and even create some additional savings to be ready for whatever life throws your way. My, is it throwing tons of stuff at us right now, right? When it rains, it pours. With interest rates dropping, a company like American Financing that never charges any upfront or hidden fees is the perfect partner to help you get into a better financial position. Their salary-based mortgage consultants are saving homeowners, get this, over $800 a month on average. Gang, you heard that right, $800 a month. Don't wait. Give them a call, 866-889-1776. That's 866-889-1776, or click on that link below and visit them at americanfinancing.net/Turley. All right, guys, what do you got? What do you got for me as we start off this week? I think I feel a little pixelated here. Is the stream a little pixelated? I feel like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. Johnny the Whiz Kid, my biggest concern is still about the illegals being allowed to vote. The SAVE Act bill failed to pass thanks to 15 rhinos. Are they not absolutely pathetic? Josh is saying everything looks good on his end. All right, so it may be just my feed here. But yes, the SAVE Act failed thanks to Republicans. They are no longer fit for purpose. If God forbid Trump loses, we really have to talk about a third party at this point, a Kennedy-Trump realigned MAGA third party, and just throw the Republicans to the wolves. And another spending bill. And Johnson's proceeding with another spending bill. Of course, that's what he always does. What else is new? But if they can't, you and I are tracking the exact same way. But if they can't proceed to shut the government down, what does that mean? Do we still have a shot with the election on making it too big to rig? Great question, Johnny. Yeah. So from what I'm seeing in terms of the swing states, we're getting very good. Not I would include Florida in this as well. Florida's not a swing state anymore. It's a solid red. But we're getting the numbers in terms of the voter registration numbers, but most importantly, the absentee ballot requests. And bottom line, we're not seeing the illegals showing up. If they're already in there, they're either getting caught and expunged, like we just saw in Arizona, like we just saw in Oklahoma. We've seen it in Tennessee. We've seen it in Texas. They're either getting caught and expunged, or they're not making a difference in the overall numbers, in the overall pattern or trends. So the trends right now are that the request for so this isn't 2020 anymore. People aren't just automatically getting mail-in ballots. Not everybody automatically got it. Generally, you had to request them, but right now in 2020, and particularly in the swing states, Arizona, Georgia, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, you have to request an absentee mail-in ballot. And then in Pennsylvania, North Carolina, and Florida, we not only get the number of absentee ballots that are getting requested, we also have the breakdown by party. And what we're finding right now is two things. There were two trends. The requests for mail-in ballots are down dramatically, which means there's far less shenanigans that can happen, because the shenanigans that happened in 2020, when all is said and done, were due to the mail-in ballots. Okay. Democrats ran around and took all the mail-in ballots that had gotten sent out, not all, but, and then found nursing homes and, change of address situations where voter registration had not been removed from the previous state the person. They found all these loopholes, as it were, and they were brilliant. Unlike the Trump, he did not do this, and I'm still very upset that Trump and the RNC should have been on top of this, but Ronna McDaniel wasn't the brightest bulb on the planet when she was the head of the RNC. But the Democrats exploited the chaos and the ambiguity of mail-in ballots. So with less mail-in ballots, there's less of a chance and less of a margin for cheating. Mail-in ballots are down 90% in Georgia right now. They were, 1.2 million or so in 2020. Now they're barely 100,000, I think. So they're down 90%. They're down dramatically in Florida, down dramatically in North Carolina, down dramatically in Pennsylvania. And at the same time, the margin that the Democrats had over Republicans in 2020 are down dramatically as well in terms of early vote ballot requests. So the Republicans are killing it in voter registration, right? We're out registering Democrats even in California, and we're crushing it in terms of early vote by mail requests. So what does all of that mean? It means is if there are all of these illegal aliens voting, where are they in the system? Where are they? They have to be traced. There is something called ballot canvassing. We can trace back every vote. That's what we're supposed to do, which we were able to do in 2020, and that's how we found all these shenanigans. So granted, you might say, oh, but that was with all the shenanigans going on. That's with 70% of all votes being cast in 2020 being cast as mail-in ballots. We don't have that chaos going on. So now we can just go to raw numbers of who's requesting the ballots. And what we're finding is less people requesting them, and the margin, because Democrats always lead Republicans in requested ballots for vote by mail. But the margin of Democrat requests is far smaller now than it was in 2020. So and even in 2022. So I fail to see any actual evidence of how illegal migrants have made it into the system. If they're going to vote, they have to make it. And you can't just show up and vote. You have to be a registered voter. The question is whether you can show up without ID and so forth. Granted, but I mean, in terms of just the way the system, the data that's coming in the system now, it's more right now, it seems to be more of a phantom fear than an actual fear. If we were seeing Democrats running away with it with voter registration, running away with it with even higher numbers of vote by mail requests, and then a larger margin between Democrats and Republicans in terms of who are making that request, then all bets are off. You're right. They've found a whole influx of new voters and they're just sticking them in there. Granted, gotcha. And if we're seeing them crushing it on voter registration, beating Republicans 2-1, okay, they're registering illegals, but they're not. We don't see it. We see the exact opposite. Republicans are crushing it. So again, they're going to try to do something, but the very fact that they've been engaging in the very horrific couple of events that we've seen in the last 60 days or so tells me they don't think they can cheat their way out of this. Vlad the Impaler, has the long-anticipated Middle East war started? The IDF wiped out a decent number of Hezbollah's command and communication system. It's a good question. We're going to have to see. It is extremely, it's extremely concerning. Things are escalating. They're just, the escalation ladder keeps going up in the Middle East. I'm very worried that Netanyahu wants to drag the United States into this conflict, particularly with Iran. While the IDF, he thinks, could maybe take on Lebanon. John Mearsheimer, there's a number of analysts who don't think the IDF can do it. They think right now, in many respects, that Netanyahu's gotten them into a quagmire. They've gone about as far as they can go with Hamas. They're not eradicating them. If anything, they're making them stronger, particularly in support among Palestinians. If there were 10% of Palestinians that still love the Israelis, they're gone. 100% of Palestinians consider them their mortal enemy, based on what's happened in Gaza. Again, for right or for wrong, I'm just being descriptive, not prescriptive. And now they're trying to push this into a wider war with Hezbollah to try to. I see it as a proxy to try to lure Iran into the conflict, because Iran's the number one backer of Hezbollah. And then if Iran gets in the conflict, they believe that the United States will use that as a justification for taking out Iran. It's scary. I hope it doesn't happen. We'll have to see. We'll have to see how it plays out. But those are, as I understand, that's the geopolitical chessboard that's playing. As we speak, I think Netanyahu is finding himself in a position, in a no-win situation, because the hard right in Israel that are only growing, Israel's basically now it's a constitutional theocracy. The hard right they're only growing because it's the Haredi Jews that are having the children. So demographically, the right is only going to continue to grow and intensify in Israel. And so Netanyahu has enormous pressures to basically, end the Palestinian problem. And, but they can't. I don't see how they can. I don't see how the IDF has the capacity to do it. So they need to get the United States in if they're going to be able to keep going up this escalation ladder. But the only way they do that is to escalate with Lebanon that sucks in Iran that would eventually suck in the United States. So it seems to me it's just a mess all the way around. And I don't see peace coming from this anytime soon, not with the actors involved. Benton, Dr. Turley, do you know your book launch is the same date as Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year for the Jewish year? I did not know that. 5785. The letter Hey, 5. Yeah. Elif Bet Kimel Dalet Hey. Not bad. I remember I took 2 semesters of Hebrew in seminary, and even have my own Tanakh, which I've been able to read through good portions of, but I have not in a while. It means grace. Grace. Is it chesed, I believe? Yeah. It also is the breath of God, Ruach HaKodesh. I'm trying to impress you, Benton. The Holy Spirit is thought by some to make a visitation. I think this is significant since your message is to spread the good news. Thank you, Benton. That's beautiful. Thank you for that. I did not know any of all of that, and I am so excited about that. So yes, it just came out. I hope you guys grab the book. I think you'll love it. I wrote it with you in mind, and there you go. I wrote it with all of us in mind. I wrote it because I think I wrote it for 2 reasons. When Trump said fight, 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 a lot of people, they took inspiration from that, but also you had many in the legacy media saying, well, I think that was unnecessarily provocative. I know. I'm not even going to try. I mean, you could think about that for 100 years and it'll never make sense. But one thing nobody was asking was, well, what is he calling all of us to fight for? What are we fighting for? And that's what this book is fundamentally about. It's about what we're fighting for. We're fighting for, just like Samwise Gamgee said, there's some good in this world, Mr. Frodo, and it's worth fighting for. So what is that good that we're fighting for? Well, it's something that's actually igniting the entire world. It's not something that's just happening here in the States. It's happening all over the world. So that's the sort of subtext of what I wrote about. A lot of people talk about the MAGA movement and how it's affecting American politics. I wanted to talk about how the MAGA movement is actually affecting world politics. And so that's what Fight is about. It's about what's happening here at home, but how it's resonating all over the world. So I think you guys are going to love it. It's right there with what we do at Turley Talks each and every day. Thanks, Benton, for that. It's beautiful. Franz Paul, with mass deportation getting almost 60% approval from independent voters, is that an indication of how they feel about the SAVE Act? I think so. Absolutely. Look, I mean, again, Franz, the jig is up. They can only do this for so long. You can only rule against the will of the people for so long. Just ask Marie Antoinette how it turns out. Just ask the Berlin Wall how it turns out. Just ask the Soviet Union how it turns out, or Eastern Germany how it turns out. I mean, I don't know why I picked on Germany, Eastern Europe how it turns out. We are in a vertical divide. That's why I always tell people, stop worrying about Tulsi Gabbard and Robert Kennedy and, Nicole Shanahan, they're leftists. We don't want to work with it's not a left-right divide. That's not populism. Populism is not left-right divide. It is up-down, right? It's vertical. It's the people versus the political class that despises and disdains us and our values, interests, and concerns, and that want to reconstruct the world in such a way where they own everything and we are serfs. Once we take them down, we can have a wonderful time. We could spend the next 20 years talking about our political differences. But forget about the wedge issues. They matter nothing. So you're absolutely right, Franz. This is 60% approval and freaking 15 Republicans vote against it. The Republican, remember, Washington is owned by the Democrats. It's rented by the Republicans. And those are Republicans that wanted to keep their rent in good standing with the Democrats. Washington is owned by the Democrats. It's rented by Republicans. That's why it's always the Republicans. Always. Every single literal time. Reverse that. Literally every single time. It's always the Republicans that will betray their voters. Democrats never do. Never. Because they own the town. Republicans merely rent. Terry, Representative Matt Gaetz of Florida reveals from a source inside DHS that five assassination teams actively are after Trump, and 3 of them include one each from Iran, Ukraine, and Pakistan. Has Trump really got this, or do we need to begin now to form the great MAGA unauthorized presidential security force? I love that, Terry. I love that. Yeah, the only thing I got a little nervous with that, with Gaetz, is once again we're blaming foreign lesions. We're trying to find the enemy from outside when the enemy is on the inside. The enemy is here. The enemy is our deep state. The enemy is not Ukraine. The enemy is not Iran. The enemy is not why Pakistan would want to take Trump out. I have no clue. I mean, they've got their own deep state that works in accordance with our State Department. That's how they got rid of Imran Khan. Imran Khan was the single most popular president they've ever had. And he was a thoroughgoing populist, and he wanted nothing to do with the Ukrainian war. And so our State Department arranged a coup and jailed him. So I don't see any of that. I don't even see Iran caring. They're recalibrating themselves around the emerging civilizationalist state world of BRICS Plus, having just joined there. They don't want to pick a fight with the United States. They're not interested in that. So I see the nefarious forces from within. So that's the one thing I don't buy. I just think our leaders are way too prone to think that the enemy is outside. And it goes back to resentment politics. Resentment politics were first practiced. I think we saw them back in the Athenian world, or just the ancient Greek world, where political leaders knew that resentment was a very, very powerful force among the people. And if it was ever aimed at them, they were toast. Right? You would just have a revolution, you'd have a coup, whatever, what you want to call it, an insurrection, and they would get Marie Antoinette. And so they became masters at redirecting resentment, deflecting it away from themselves and onto a foreign enemy. So for the Romans, it was the Carthaginians, right? For the Athenians, it was the Spartans, and you name it. And but studies in resentment politics found that in the 1960s, politicians found that if they divided the American public, if they deflected resentment onto a demographic inside the American Republic, they could divide the people. They could create wedge issues that divided us, and they could conquer. They would make sure that there was always, 30, 40, 45% of the population that doesn't go along with the others that are livid over what the permanent political class is doing. So I just think we'll still avail ourselves to that classical use of resentment deflection and start blaming the Russians or start blaming, some other foreign power. But in the end, we always have to remember the legitimate object of resentment right now is our own permanent political class. And good morning, Dr. Steve. What is your take on the mysterious symptoms experienced by the Arizona rallygoers? Do you think there's something more nefarious agent at work? Is there a bad apple in Trump's organization? It's something to which Dan Bongino alluded. Yeah, I'm going to have to defer to Dan on that. I saw it, and I just have not done any critical study on it. So, yeah, I'm just going to have to defer to Dan on it. It does look very creepy and very, very mysterious and inexplicable from my angle. So hopefully Dan has a little more in-depth understanding of what's happening there. Johnny, what can you tell us about Laura Trump's plan on having thousands of poll watchers and lawyers during the election? Will it have any impact? Well, I mean, so far it looks like they've done a great job with the early vote mail-in ballot requests and mail-in ballot drives. So we're seeing the fruit of that. Again, Republican requests are up everywhere, and such that the margin between Republicans and Democrats has shrunk dramatically. I mean, in Pennsylvania, it's almost been halved. It's really very impressive. Almost been halved, as I understand, from even 2022 when Fetterman got away with having, I think it was a 800,000 vote lead. It was just huge, astronomical in 2022. So they've delivered there, and they've delivered on voter registration drives, which is a very important indicator for how the election is going to go. We have data in Iowa that finds that whenever Republicans have a point or two voter registration advantage, they tend to win Iowa. If it goes the other way around, if Democrats have a 1 or 2 point voter registration advantage, tends to go Democrat. By the way, in Iowa, in Iowa, when Trump won in 2016, 2024, if I recall, it was about a 1 point Republican advantage in Iowa. I don't know if you guys know it, but right now, Republicans have a 10 point advantage. They've literally 10x'd their advantage that they had both times they won Iowa by 7-8 points. So Trump looks like he's on course to win Iowa by 11, 12, 13 points. And if he does, he should take Wisconsin with him, because Wisconsin never votes below, if I recall, 9 points of whatever the margin of victory is for whatever party in Iowa, because they tend to share very similar demographics. So that said, they're proving their worth there in those two things, and then they're saying they're putting in equal, if not more, effort into making sure we're getting hundreds of thousands of poll watchers and lawyers. I don't have any direct knowledge of how they're actually doing on that, other than their word. They said they were putting tremendous efforts in voter registration drives and tremendous efforts in early vote by mail requests. Both have panned out, so hopefully this will pan out comparably. Rock Dog, Dr. Steve, the more she opens her mouth, spewing her pearls of stupidity, the more votes she loses. With that, I saw a video show a few polls that New York was in the margin of error. Do you think Trump can win New York? I saw that as well, Rock Dog. So there is a poll out there. Just came out, I thought, yesterday or the day before. What it did is it took the latest polls in New York, and then it weighted them for the, I think for the electorate that came out in 2020. And was that how they did it, or the electorate that's coming out now? I think I forgot, but they wait. So this is this is part of the art and science of polling. Is you have to wait. You get all your responses, but then you have to weight the responses in such a way. All right, how many men are going to come out? How many Republican men? How many Republican women? How many blacks are coming out? How many Republican blacks, Democrat black? How many rural votes are coming out? How many rural votes in Wisconsin versus rural votes in Virginia? So it's very complicated stuff. But anyway, they did the weighting, and they found Trump and Kamala literally neck and neck. They were tied. If anything, I thought one had Trump like 0.2 over Kamala, something like that, or maybe the other way around. It is suggestive of why he held that rally in Long Island the other day, which is huge, at Nassau Coliseum. He's getting a lot of love. He did the rally in Brooklyn. He's getting a lot of love in New York. I don't think he can win in the end, but I love the fact that he's, there's an old saying, always make sure that your reach extends beyond your grasp. Always make sure your reach extends beyond your grasp. Always, a sculptor always has to use more marble than he needs. So if he's going to pull off an epic win, he needs to be reaching out to New York and New Hampshire and Minnesota and New Mexico, and maybe even pot-infused Colorado, although I think Colorado's gone. Right? That's my wife's favorite state. She loves Colorado. And our Vice President John Bennett is he's right now in Colorado. He lives in Colorado. So anyway, I jest. But yeah, I think so. Maine is definitely on the table right now. So absolutely, I think he has a chance of making New York as close as what stalked Hochul with Lee Zeldin when he came within 5 points of taking New York. Franz, Hillary Clinton recently called for the indictment of those involved with foreign interference in our elections. I know. The hypocrisy knows no ends. Since migrants are foreigners, wouldn't them voting be considered election interference? And what about all those involved in the chain of custody? Does everybody get an indictment? Oh, Franz, you know how the game is played. Yeah. So indictments, weaponized legalism, lawfare. I mean, it's all part of the Democrats' attempt at increasing their control. It's got nothing to do with foreign election interference. They'll be happy to have foreign election interference if it increases their control, right? It's got nothing to do with chain of custody protocols being broken. If they break, then by all and it leads to their increasing their control, by all means, bring it in there. It only matters when it stands up to and frustrates and resists their attempt to increase their control. Well, then election interference is really bad. Well, then burning down buildings is really bad. So, well, then, being found on a porno site, well, now that's really bad, right? So it always has to do with control. If and the state always uses fear and the risk to our safety as their justification to rob us of our freedoms so as to expand their control. So it's always, Putin trying to interfere in trying to take over our democracy. Putin has a stooge in the White House doing his bidding, endangering us all, or whatever it is. It's always This rhetoric is Trump's rhetoric is causing all these people in Springfield to be harassed and intimidated. Like, your rhetoric about Trump being Hitler incarnate didn't just almost get him killed? Oh, no, because that's true. But that's true, you say. So everything, rhetoric, election interference, everything, the law, everything is used by these people. Everything is exploited by these people for them to gain control. And the only time the law actually applies is against those who try to stand opposed and resist and dissent from that control. Then they'll throw the entire law at you. So it's called anarcho-tyranny. Laws for thee, not for me. Catherine, what states will allow votes to be counted after midnight on election day? How can we stop the trucks from delivering votes as they did in 2022? It's a great question, Catherine. I don't know which states are going to be. I'm assuming the old purveyors of that will be as guilty as they were back then, but it will not be. I don't think it will be like 2020. We will see. So what we're worried about with the trucks showing up at 3 a.m. is we're worried about mail-in ballot votes. But in order for you to get a mail-in ballot, you have to request it, and those requests are on record. We've got them on record. Again, we know this from both 2020 and 2022. We know of how many, like in I think it was in 2022, there were 2020, there were 100,000 Republican requested votes, mail-in ballot votes, ballots, I should say. Mail-in ballots, sorry, 100 requested Republican, 100,000. I'll do this, guys. 100,000. I feel I'm having my Kamala moment. I will be burdened by whatever's not. 100,000 Republican requested mail-in ballots that never got returned. Biden won by 80,000. They never got returned. This is part of the ballot harvesting operation that we have to make sure we've got. Every one of those Republican ballots need to get returned. My point is that we can trace back the ballots. The ballots, certainly this year, have to be requested. And right now, as we speak, there is no data in the system that shows that ballots of that number are being requested. Remember, 70% of all ballots cast in 2020, as it were, on that night, on that day, 70% of ballots cast were cast by mail. So that's a lot of trucks that can show up. But now the mail-in ballot numbers are down dramatically. The Democrat margin, because they always have a lead, they always tended to lead in vote by Republicans. It's our civic duty. We tend to come out on election day. I still do to this day. The margin of the Democrat lead is smaller than it's been. It's significantly smaller than it was from 2020 and 2022, and the amount of Republican requests have risen. If that's the case, where are all these ballots that are going to suddenly show up in the middle of the night? Where are they? They're not there. So they're not in the system. So that's, again, there is the fear of it happening, but then there is the rational surmising of whether it can happen. Are the structures in place, are comparable structures in place in 2024 that were placed in 2020 so that a comparable outcome can happen? We're not seeing it. In 2020, 70% of the voting population was, including in Georgia, we're voting by mail. So there's a lot of trucks that can show up. Whereas now it's only 10% of Georgia, for example, or significantly smaller. Now I just have Georgia's number in my head because it was such a shocking In North Carolina, if I recall, it's 80% down. There's no numbers, or there's no trucks. They just don't have. It's not in the data. Richard, Dr. Steve, why should I vote early if there have been so many attempts on Trump's life? Good question. Yeah, very good question. I mean, that would be very interesting, right? Do the votes automatic? I don't know how they would do it. God forbid. I don't even want to think about it. But yeah, it's insane. Lex, a recent article on Blaze revealed that the deep state is planning to use illegal aliens to swing the election away from Trump. How likely is it that they try it, and can they get away with it? Lex, I just think it's the same. It's the same. So we're all concerned, and we should be concerned. And there's data to justify those concerns. We are seeing Arizona just talking about 100,000 people I'm assuming there's illegal immigrants, but 100,000 ineligible voters on their rolls. Texas had just expunged since 2021 over 1 million people on their rolls, but again, that was for a whole host of things. And I think it was a very small number that were actually illegal immigrants. We're seeing the same thing in Oklahoma. There is no question a concern, but is it the great danger that we're facing? I don't think so. I'm not seeing it in the system. You would have to see it in the system. Again, Lex, if in the voter registration drives, if we saw the Democrats crushing us 2-1 or 3-1, where they were out registering us, and again, this is data that you can get. If they were out registering us 3-1, 2-1, or just significantly more, we could all say, you see, they don't have any more of their own voters anymore. They're recruiting illegals. Gotcha there. But it's the opposite. That's not what we're seeing. Republicans are out registering Democrats sometimes 2-1. We're seeing that even in California. We've been seeing it. Thank God for people like Scott Pressler, who we just interviewed today, by the way. We'll have a wonderful video on Scott on the ground in Harrisburg. We have been crushing it in Pennsylvania registration. In Pennsylvania, Democrats used to outnumber Republicans by over 1 million. Now it's barely 300,000. We have crushed that margin by 70%. So that's an indicator. If they are registering illegals, where is it? Where is it in the voter registration numbers? So you've got that. That's an objective indicator. Don't give me, maybe. Don't give me the, maybe. Where is the actual objective data? Where is it? I hear you say, we caught them. Well, where is it? Where is it in the numbers? So that's number one. And then number two, we have the early vote by mail request numbers, the early vote by mail data. And what do you know? It's showing the same thing that we're seeing with the voter registrations. The number of vote by mail requests is down dramatically, which you would expect it to be up dramatically if illegals are being recruited. And then the amount of Democrats is down across the board while the amount of Republicans requesting is up. So where is it in the data? Where is it in the system? That's what I want to see. Until then, I'm sorry. I just think this is a little bit Chicken Little. I may be proven totally wrong on election day, and I may get sideswiped and just totally broadsided by it. I don't know. We'll see. But show me where I'm going wrong on this, because I just don't see it. Rock Dog, Dr. Steve, after the disaster with the human trafficking Oprah windbag. Oh, Rock Dog, you're the best. Dang. Do you think the puppet masters hide Harris until election day? Yeah. Well, the very fact that she's being forced out to do all these interviews, and again, these fabricated puff interviews to boot because she's a coward, the very fact that's happening shows that they have internal polling that shows she's losing. And so she's doing everything she can to try to gain voters either back into her camp or for the first time in her camp. It's not working, clearly. Yeah, No, I think she's being forced to go out there. I don't know what they're going to do. They'll still try to do some puff interviews because everything about the establishment right now is fake. Everything about it. And so what they're just going to double down on the fakery. And that's it, gang. All right. Have a wonderful weekend. I love each and every one of you, and I will see you on Monday. Make sure you check out all the interviews we have over the weekend. Got a lot of great stuff. What's going on the ground in my own backyard here in Pennsylvania. Gonna love it. God bless.